Okay, if you're having trouble opening the lid on your freezer, particularly after just opening it up and retrieving something, then I've got a fix for you. Seek the drain in the floor of the freezer. In this case, it's located in the corner. What you'll need to do is take that plug, unscrew it, and set it aside in the freezer. It might be helpful to grasp the plug in the floor of the freezer with the pliers, but do so very carefully. And if it seems to really be stuck and you can't turn it, put a towel or a rag with hot water on the plug and it'll melt it, and then you'll be able to get it off with the pliers. Now the plug has been removed. Now we'll go to the outside of the freezer and remove the cap, and so we have an opening from the inside to the outside of the freezer. Here is the outside of the drain that can be easily opened. Now you've got a connection with the inside of the freezer to the outside of the freezer. You should by now be thinking there must be a vacuum in the freezer, and you're actually correct. Every time you open the freezer, particularly in a warm environment, warm air gets into the freezer, then it contracts, creating a vacuum, which is almost impossible to break, especially if you've got a good seal on your freezer lid. Leaving the cap off inside the freezer, place the external cap on loosely. Turn it all the way in and then back it off about a half a turn. It'll be rather loose, but that'll allow air to flow from the inside of the freezer to the outside, equalizing the pressure and allowing you to open your lid easily. If you have ice forming in the tube and the vacuum isn't released easily, an alternative approach is to leave the external cap tightened firmly against the freezer body. Then, each time you open the freezer lid, you can turn the cap and open it, and you'll hear the hissing sound as the vacuum is relieved. Once the vacuum is relieved, you'll be able to open the lid. After you close the lid, simply tighten this back up. Now you should be able to open your freezer easily without tugging on the top. There's just a couple other things to keep in mind. It could be that there's ice in that little channel from the inside to the outside of the freezer, and still you have problems with a vacuum forming inside. So to remedy that, take a glass of hot water and pour it into the hole inside the freezer. It'll drain out the outside, so make sure you've got a way to collect it, but that will remove the ice that might have formed in there. And this might be a good opportunity to defrost the freezer altogether, and then you'll be fresh and clean and no ice in that tube when you make your adjustment. Now, if opening the drain doesn't work, you may have to put a small hole in the freezer lid gasket. You can see that with a little black dot there. And you'll have to place another hole on the inside of the gasket so they connect with one another, and this should really help. You can use an ordinary paper punch to make the holes. So by using with an ordinary paper punch, you can make a hole. You can make both holes simultaneously, one in the bottom of the gasket and one in the side of the gasket, and this will most likely correct the problem. I hope this helps.